What's going on, GB? It's gonna be interesting space right here.
Hey, man. Yeah, got a little bit to talk about, huh?
We do, and I want to first off, I want to thank you for doing this. Just to have somebody that's been in the same career field to bounce, this information off of is pretty crucial because that doesn't happen a lot of times. So, just the fact that you're up here, you're willing to do this. I know it's a little bit outside of your zone. I first had my interaction with you when you did that after space, the Sean Ryan, the space he held about Livelsberger. So again, thank you for doing this.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, I'm not like super experienced in drones or UFO or any of that stuff, but my perspective from a Green Beret standpoint and what we're about to pick apart here, I think has a little bit of merit. So happy to do it, and hopefully shed some light on this. I don't want to call it a straight grift, but it's pretty insane.
Definitely, there's been some information that's come out today that's raised some major red flags. I posted about some of it earlier when I had a break at work, but it's quite the story, right? And the first thing that I didn't want to do is just I didn't want to degrade it right off the bat. I was hoping, as somebody that's, special forces that served like you did, I was really hoping that this wasn't going to be a bunch of red flags right off the bat. But, it's only a 24 hours into this and a lot of stuff has come out and we're going to dive a little bit into it. And I want to tell everybody in the audience that's going to be in here. So right now it's going to be me and GB talking. I don't know if GB knows any other former, Green Berets or JSOC guys or whatever that are in the space. If you are or you are a veteran, eventually I would like to bring you up if you have something to, if you have something to input. But we're going to do a breakdown first and get GB's take on it.
I don't see anyone right now that know has any more insight, but yeah, when we get towards once we go through some of this stuff, absolutely open it up and see if people have anything to add or any questions to clarify.
Nice, nice. So we'll just kind of start it off. For people that aren't familiar, we're going to have a mixture of the UFO Twitter crowd in here that pays attention to UFOs, UAP daily, and all the news that breaks in it. My boy Vetted down there, he's one of those guys. Like he's been reporting on it. Red Panda Koala, he's been in the game for a while. There's quite a few people, and then we're going to have people on the other side, veterans and whatnot. So there's going to be some intertwining right here. So just to kind of give it a start, so Jesse Michaels is a kind of a popular podcaster. He has a channel on YouTube and whatnot. And the big push here lately, since I think 2023, is these whistleblowers, these UAP or UFO whistleblowers that have come forward, mainly from their lead guy, David Grush, who testified in front of Congress alongside two pilots, David Fravor and Ryan Graves. This happened back in 2023, and it kind of caused a big commotion. And then fast forward to this year, there was another congressional hearing. Lead man on this one was Lou Elizondo, who has a very checkered history, especially of making statements that contradict things that he said in the past, and claims that he's made, titles that he's held. He's even been caught in an event where people paid to see him talk and give a lecture. He was caught, putting up a fake image of a UFO, which ended up being a reflection of a chandelier behind whoever took the picture, and he cast it in the light of it's a UFO mothership, and it was confirmed by pilots that they were seeing the same thing in the sky. And he got caught. He retracted that, so forth and so on. So here we are, big push for all these whistleblowers to come forward. And it hasn't happened, and the ones that have been extremely questionable. I pretty much, I would say I put the one that came out recently in a documentary by James Fox called "The Program" to bed. Jason Sands, who's now known as the intergalactic alien assassin, Air Force intelligence officer in the past, or not officer, but analyst in the past, who claims he went and shot aliens in caverns and killed them on the behest of the United States Air Force in the 90s. So here we are. Another whistleblower comes forward, and this guy's name is, Randy Anderson. And this is on the back of, which everybody knows, Livelsberger's situation, Green Beret, pretty well known, and what happened with him, and then the message that he sent out to Sean Ryan and a couple other people, Anti-Hero Podcast. So once that news broke, I think it was Stephen Greer, a known UFO grifter in the community, who's been caught, putting flares in the sky, and saying that they were UFOs to audiences. Um, he had mentioned that there's going to be more Green Berets, I believe, coming forward. And sure enough, this guy comes forward like a week or two later. It was something along those lines. And so it was Jesse Michaels. This guy, Randy Anderson, I'll let GB jump in here at any moment, but Randy Anderson is a former Green Beret. It's kind of shrouded on how many years he actually served. He's made a comment on a website saying it was 8 years. He did an interview about his supposed business that says 10 years they did it. So it's kind of up in the air. But we'll kind of get into the claims here in a minute. GB, do you know anything about that Naval Research Center crane that's in Indiana?
Yeah, I do. It's. I mean, does have some advanced weaponry stuff going on, but essentially, and what he would have went to, and this is kind of what's open to. It's open to SF. It's open to any really armor or anyone that's dealing with weapons. It's actually geared towards Navy small arms, right, and the repair of them. It's not really actually geared at going and learning all these crazy weapons. There's actually and that's another thing too. Like this dude, I'm gonna break some stuff down, but 18 Bravos get their own foreign weapons. It's part of the Bravo course, right? So they go through all these foreign weapons and how to use them, how to take them apart, how to put them back together, all the specs of them and everything. They have a big test on them at the end, right? So um, I'm not saying he wouldn't necessarily go to this. I'm sure there are. I mean, I don't know personally anyone. I haven't talked to anyone that's went to them, but I have buddies, and they're like, yeah, I know dudes that have went to that armorer's course, and it's not like a crazy big deal or anything. It's good information. It's good for a weapons guy to know, but it's nothing insane. All right, so I mean that part of it is kind of crazy, but I want to go back a little bit farther. For first, if everybody watched that video, or if you didn't, he starts off and kind of talks about going through selection, and I don't know. I'm trying to figure out exactly when he went through. I think it was pretty close to when I did. He said he's like they went on the run, and he saw these signs or things on trees as he's running, and he had to remember them for a test. Absolute horseshit. All right, I went to selection. The last thing you're thinking about is looking at any trees. All the events start, especially the runs. They start in the dark. You're running with a headlamp on. Like you're going through these trails. I mean, the sandy part's true, but you're going through these trails with a headlamp on, just hoping to survive. Not like you don't even know how far you're running. You don't know how fast you need to go. You just know you got to run. And so, like the last thing on anybody's mind is, oh, I see these weird things. I should probably like look at them, and then they're gonna get me for some other crazy training, like all that right there. I don't even know what to tell you about that. That's insane. All right, so right when he started off, doesn't make a lot of sense. The next thing, an 18 Bravo, especially an E6, is what it looks like he got out as a staff sergeant. There's zero chance he had anything above a secret clearance. All right. So for everybody, not trying to insult anybody's intelligence, but like SF teams, generally, not everybody on the team has a top secret. Very few, actually. The team leader will, the team sergeant probably will, most of the time will, and then the 180 Alpha, which is the warrant officer, will, and the Fox. All right, they will all have the Fox is the intel sergeant for the team. They'll all have a top secret generally, or if they don't have one, they will be in the process of getting one for their position. But everybody else, I mean, I only ever had a secret, and 18 series dudes most of us don't even want anything higher than that because it's just extra bullshit you have to go through. All right, like no one's sitting there like, oh, I really want my top secret so that they can ask my kindergarten teachers how I was and talk to all my friends, and like it's just not something that we want to deal with. So this like view of this, the way he's talking and stuff, and him and some random other Green Beret that he never spoke to again after that, like went to this course that's actually a pretty well known course that armorers go to, and then all of a sudden they went down into a basement on an elevator way underground to this secret laboratory and got shown all this stuff for no reason. What are you serious? Like as I'm watching this, I only watched about an hour of the thing anyways. I had to stop because I was like I might lose my mind and like reach through the YouTube and just strangle this dude because this is all complete absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
So
So
yeah, go if you I'll talk about a few other things, but just if you have anything to add to that.
yeah, just real quick. So yeah, so he had stated that it was he was there for training. He never really said what he was doing, but then it was one day after the training. Apparently, they were him and this guy were doing really well. They both had TSSCI clearances, like he stated that, and so they took him into this building where supposedly, like at first, they were shown. I think it was foreign tech that it wasn't exotic. It was just unconventional. I think that's what he said. And when he started to talk about what that was, he didn't say anything. He said he couldn't give any details. Made it sound like it was classified, right? Like he wasn't gonna, he can't talk about it. And then going to what you're saying, all of a sudden, apparently, they go to another security checkpoint. Basically, made it sound like they were going into a skiff or maybe even a facility where there's a SAP, something along the lines where it's like super secret squirrel stuff, classified, ultra, like. And then they went down this elevator, and when he pops out of the elevator, he says he sees a placard by a door that says "Off-World Technology." But he says it looks like it could be replaced. So I'm assuming it's like a placard that they put, in offices by doors. So kind of getting into that technology. But here's the thing so the technology, yeah, it's supposed to be off world. But let's discuss the major red flag that stuck out right there to me is the fact that if you can't talk about something that is just basically, foreign adversary technology, if munitions or whatnot, whatever he was dealing with, if you can't discuss those details in the setting that you were in before you went to the ultra classified side, and then you go down some elevator and then you see something that says off-world technology, and then you're introduced to two things that are like, you know should be like way classified more than what he saw initially, but he can give details of that. Makes no sense whatsoever. That violates, like, even if this was true, that would violate every single thing that he's ever signed, NDA wise. If he did have a clearance, like unauthorized disclosure on a damn podcast instead of like going through proper channels, like in the ICIG or something along those lines. He can't talk about Chinese or Russian, munitions, but he can give you details about the ultra classified UFO stuff. Major red flag. That's just not how it works. Period. So
Right. And so again, like so I was a course manager for a SWIC course, and again, I only had a secret clearance, but I would visit the TSOCs to talk to them about everything that was going on and how they were functioning with their SF, their counterpart SF group for their AO and all this kind of stuff, and just make sure that we were coordinating correctly with the TSOCs to make sure that we were putting out the best information in our course, right? Whenever I did that and we went into the skiff, the skiff locks down because I only have a secret. So they had to close everything up. They had to put everything away. They changed the damn lights to let everyone know that someone that doesn't have a top secret is coming in to the skiff. And so like it's literally this whole thing. And you had to like wait outside the door and be like, okay, well, wait till they're all ready. And then I go in. It's super inconvenient for everybody involved, and I get it. So, but like that's the like, and then yeah, like you said, the NDA, like just because you get out of the military doesn't mean that NDA no longer applies to you. I mean, if you disclose something that you had previously it was classified, that you were under NDA, and like you disclose it to the public like that, I mean, you go to jail, dude. There's all kinds of different things that can happen to you from doing something like that. So that's insane. And yeah, then where he goes and all of a sudden, yeah, I can't talk about that. But then we go down into this secret layer, and I can talk about everything that I saw down there, and they didn't have us sign anything else. Like, I don't know, man. That again, the whole thing just kind of made me angry watching it, and it's kind of hard for me to. Didn't you posted something too, or you sent me something about him being addicted to heroin or something in the past? What was that about?
Yeah, so we'll kind of get into that. But so yeah, that's what I wanted to put out. Like, I'm glad you brought that up about like what it's like when you go on the skiff and you don't have a secret clearance, or you don't have a top secret clearance. Those are the things that happen, right? So and even so, if he even let's entertain the thought that he had a TSSCI like he claimed, then when you officially get that clearance and you get indocked, then you sign an NDA, and that NDA follows you everywhere, right? And that's not counting any other NDAs that you would sign working in other programs, if they're special access programs or whatnot. That's just the baseline paperwork. Like, so the fact that you can, that you're just going out here and blabbing this kind of stuff that's supposedly classified makes no sense. And that's where the red flags go up. Like, either, hey, you did something really bad here and you shouldn't have said this, or B, you're making this up. So that's where the red flags were. Now, to go into it before we get into all that, so what he saw, if people have not seen the video, so at this crane, this naval, what is it called? What I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's
It's the Naval Surface Warfare Center, Crane Division.
yes. So in this place, he said, he goes down in there, and the first thing he sees is what he labels like a basketball sized sphere. And it looks like it.
Hold on one second before you jump into that. He first says that he goes to this course to learn the Mark 44 minigun, which the Mark 44 is not a minigun. The Mark 44 is a 30 millimeter chain gun that is actually called the Mark 44 Bushmaster, which is not necessarily small. It's not small arms, and it's not anything that I mean, if anybody in the that's listening, that's a Bravo or has some more experience with that, let me know if I'm wrong. But that goes on tanks. Like, that's not something that light infantry unit like SF or something is going to be using. So that, first of all, is insane. He calls it a minigun. The M134 is a minigun, right? And that's something that he as an 18 Bravo would have been trained in. But to go in and the first thing you say about the weapon system that you're talking about is completely false, like, that's a huge red flag too. All right, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad you point. See, that's why it's important to have people that do the same job or like the same job, uh, in a in a space to talk about these things. This is what happened when I had Jason, like a guy that worked in the same career field as Jason Sands in the intelligence community. He was able to give those kind of details, which paints a far better picture, and it helps like debunk a lot of these claims. And or call them out as BS, because that's just not how things operate, right? So I'm glad you brought that up. That's not something as an Air Force veteran that I would have caught. I wouldn't have known any better. So I appreciate that. Going all right. So going forward, so yeah, the first thing he sees is a basketball-sized spear. He kind of, I guess, he explained it as like it's like metallic and super smooth, like basically like it's a perfect, no kind of indentions, but I guess at the top it looked like there was a small indention sphere, and he said that it looked like it was levitating, like there was some space underneath it. So it was just kind of like hovering on a podium, right? Which is a bit odd. And he made it sound like they took them down there because they're weapon specialists, that maybe they were trying to see their take and what they thought it could be or whatnot. So not much was said of that afterwards. But in the UFO culture out here, on UFO Twitter, spheres or orbs are a huge thing. Like, it is like the current flying saucer in the UFO community. So it's not a surprise that that was said, because that fits right into what's going on right now. Now, the second thing that he says that he witnessed, and not just him, but a fellow that was with him, mind you. We'll get into that. Is some kind of what they described as a gauntlet. It's this piece that apparently that you could put on your hand or on your arm, and it. I think he described it as some kind of potential weapon system.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, and he said they were real quiet about it because it must have killed somebody or somebody died from it or what. Oh,
yeah, there's some kind of like when they found it, there was kind of some kind of energy burst or something, and somebody got hurt, potentially killed. I believe is what he said. So then he goes into talking about it and describing it in detail, and then he stated that there were uh, projected hieroglyphics that were associated with this piece of material or whatever it was, some weapon. And the best way, I guess, the way he described it was he mentioned the movie Predator and like the wrist thing on the from the Predator in the movie, and like how those little hieroglyphics look and how they're ever changing. That's how supposedly these hieroglyphics that were projected, like projected in the air, and they were changing and they were like ever evolving, something like that. So he described that. Now, afterwards, apparently, him and the guy went back to, I think, the hotel or I think he said barracks where they were staying, and I guess they talked a little bit about it, and then that was it. And he never saw this guy again. Sorry, you hear my cat. Sorry about that. You never hear this thing again, and then so he doesn't hear from the guy again, and supposedly they try to find him. This is on another podcast, UAP Gerb, I think it's called. Supposedly try to find this guy, and somehow he's able to determine or hear that the guy potentially died, in combat, something like that, which may have happened. I'm not going to discount that, right? Guys do a dangerous job. It was a dangerous time. I'm not going to discount that. But at the same time, he made it sound like he couldn't find him, like he'd never seen him again. He couldn't find him to talk to him, which is to me. I know that there are ways in email chains and on servers in the military that if you know somebody's name or at least know what they do or at least the unit. I mean, surely he knew what unit he was from. He hadn't had conversations with the guy. Like he could have easily found him and talked to him or contacted
yeah,
him.
yeah, that's insane. You go to a court, especially if you saw some crazy shit with this dude that you went to a course with, and like you were the only two that saw it. Like you're gonna remember this dude's full name, and you're gonna know what group he was in, and all that kind of goodness. And you, yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can sit here and speculate all we want, but what it comes down to is that the main aspects of everything that he said are like you can't trust any of it. I mean, he didn't even know a damn gun. He didn't even know the difference between a minigun and a chain gun. Which, as an 18 Bravo, like, I mean, I don't know how many drugs did he do. Like, does he even know anything at this point?
Right. So that's his job, right? He's supposed to be a weapons specialist. So, and I know we've mentioned the drug thing twice. So this thing goes, it's on the Jesse Michaels podcast thing, American Alchemy, I think it's called. And so it starts to pick up, he's kind of popular. I'm sure Joe Rogan and people know who he is. So fast forward to today, in less than 24 hours, one of the first posts that come out, and it was sent to me by Stephen Greenstreet from the New York Post, and it shows a episode of a podcast that he did that seems to be geared around firefighters, which we know from the interview with Jesse Michaels. He stated that he was a firefighter, uh, either currently or at some point in his life, along with the Green Beret stuff. So on this podcast, and this is in 2023, he admits that he became an opiate addict. I believe he stated heroin, and and to be clear, I'm not bashing this, right? I'm just stating what the facts are, and it's kind of relevant in what's going to come up. So when he says he was addicted to opiates, and then while he was a firefighter, he was arrested at work at work with narcotics on him and was charged 3 felonies for drug paraphernalia while at work.
Hmm.
3 felonies. Now, per his words, those felonies were eventually dropped. He spent, I think he said, 2 days in jail, got out. I think he went to like a rehab one time. It didn't work or something, and I think he found a better one. And supposedly he's on the up and up, right? And that's fine. And I'm, you know, more power to him, right? That you don't want somebody to suffer from that. But the reason why this is an issue is because later on in the Jesse Michaels interview and in the other podcast, he states that he currently is off and on a contractor for the DoD or DOE. I can't remember which one he said. It wasn't clear. Um, that he does some kind of tactical operations training, tactical warfare training at Area 51, and has an active TSSCI clearance. So the reason why that's important, if you have, I don't know if anybody's ever had anything above a secret here, but if you've had at all any kind of drug issues, that is the quickest way to either get denied a clearance or lose a clearance. You can do the rehab thing, that's fine, but it ultimately you're going to lose the clearance anyways. I literally have known people that have admitted to just using marijuana a few times more than probably what was would be accepted, and they didn't get their clearance. Okay, they take that very serious. So your drug history, if you have one, is most likely going to disqualify you for a clearance, especially if you already have one. That's important because if a guy's making a claim that he works for the Department of Defense and going to Area 51 doing tactical warfare training, then that means, like he stated, he has an active clearance. That's not possible. There's just no way that can even work. So fast forward, come to find out that he did a news interview, and the clip that I was talking about where he stated that he was a Green Beret for 10 years, that interview was actually for his company called Bravo One. I think it has something to do with teaching people, I don't know, like gun safety and stuff like that. Which I mean that's right up his alley, right? A weapons specialist or whatever. But the issue with that has now come out. There's a potential that company is not even licensed. It's out of Nevada, potentially that it's not licensed and it's never been reported. Which, if you're dealing with any kind of arms, I don't know too much about this, but if you're given like anything to do with weapons training or anything like that, I think you would have to register as as a trainer to do something like that. I don't know the exact details. Maybe you do, GB, but that turns out it's not registered at all. So, but it's out of Nevada because that's where he currently lives. Nevada, obviously, in the range of Area 51. It's a good possibility that he has exaggerated his company that just teaches basically, basic gun safety and stuff to civilians. He has exaggerated what he does with that company and the accesses to places like Area 51. That's why stuff like that is important. Those details are important. So, GB, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, there's definitely all kinds of licensing you have to do, especially if you're going to be teaching stuff like shooting or anything like that. Not to mention like the insurance that you'd have to have. I did a quick look up. Bravo One Company Inc. out of Nevada. It looks like Bravo Ventures LLC and Dove Ventures are like connected to it somehow. You can't even click on Dove Ventures, so I don't know what that is. But there's no other information about it. It looks like it was just they were just created, and then that's kind of all that has happened with them. So that's weird. Um, hold on, let me go to the comments right quick. Zinar, I don't know how to say your name, dude, but he made a point that some echoes on a team will have a TSSCI, and that's true too, especially if they're handling higher level crypto. So they'll definitely have that, and that would be the other person on a team. But the point of all that is that an 18 Bravo unless they were at like a S3 battalion S3 or higher, and in a planning department where they needed a higher security clearance, they wouldn't have anything higher than a secret. And then another thing, there's no UAP programs under USASOC, right? So USASOC, for those of you who don't know, is the United States Army Special Operations Command. So that's what is over SF. So Special Forces Command is going to be right under USASOC, and there's no like, and this kind of to coincide with the Matt Livelsberger thing, and that email, and I did a thread on that email to kind of break down some of the weird stuff from the email and a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And then at the end, him saying he has a TSSCI and he was in a UAP unacknowledged special access program, which again, like if you're in an unacknowledged SAP, like you're not talking about that because it's literally that would be like talking about that you're like, I'm a black ops operator and I kill people for a living, and like what, like no, okay dude, then you like wouldn't be talking about it right now to anybody. So um but there's no position inside of USASOC to where you would even be a part of anything like that. So that doesn't make none of that makes sense. And honestly, if one more Green Beret comes forward and is like, I know about UAP, I might slap him. I didn't even know what UAP was until the Matt Livelsberger thing because we don't talk about that shit. No, literally, I've never heard a Green Beret talk about it before in my whole life. And so that is super weird to me. And now this all of a sudden is a thing, right? And then like Green Berets don't get like higher level drone courses either. So like even if you wanted to talk about like we can do the SUAS, the smaller ones, the 55-pound or lower drones, because that's what we would use at a team level. But you're not doing anything more than that. And so unless you honestly, I can't even think of, unless you maybe went up to SOCOM or higher and you were in some staff level command at that, then you're not going to get any of that. You're not even going to be talking about anything that even has anything to do with that. So all that's pretty crazy to me.
Yeah, that's great insight there because we can speculate it all day long, but unless you're really in that side of special forces, Green Berets, JSOC, whatever, like if you don't know it right until guys like you come out and talk about exactly how you would get there. Is it even a thing? Like that's pretty crazy that you guys. So nobody's ever talked about like UFOs, UAP. Well, UAP is kind of new, but it's usually just UFOs. UAP has just been termed lately by the DoD, but yeah, I
Dude,
mean,
dude, if you walked into a team room and started talking about UFOs, they'd be like, "Get your shit and get out in the hallway."
I don't doubt that. As you know, like I've got a buddy who's currently in special forces, and I can tell you, like I I've tried to bring some of this stuff up, and he sounds so disinterested. Like half the time, I don't get text back, and we always text. So you know what I mean? Like, so I can believe that because you guys have a lot more on your plate than talking about stuff in the sky that people misidentify all the time. There might be something to it, but as far as like, is it priority? Absolutely not. It sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's so much more. There's so much going on when you're on a team and you're operational that like that's the last thing anyone's talking about. I mean, you're trying to keep up just to make sure that you have everything done and all the certifications you have to get and everything done before you go on your next trip. I mean, OpTempo is a little bit slower now. I think they just recently switched from a 12-month to a 24-month. But like you're still, my day I mean, I got back from one trip I was back for a month and went on another trip and then came back. I went so quick that I had to like get a official memo signed from the colonel to make sure that I could go on the third trip that I went on because technically I didn't have enough dwell time. Like you just don't have time to sit here and talk about UFOs because and that's another thing. Like if you watch that podcast, they use a lot of language like how did you feel when you walked in the room? And he's like ominous, and I feel like bro, no Green Beret is gonna talk like that. Like what, dude? Like you walk it, we care about things that you can see and you can touch and things that like can kill you, because that's what really matters. Like some sphere that might have controlled a spaceship that crashed, if even if they like even if say these dudes brought me and they're like, hey, come look at this, and they're like, this sphere was in this spacecraft that crashed, I'd be like, okay, can we use it to like kill the enemy? And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, okay, well then why the hell am I here?
I just laughed. Yeah, I mean, it makes complete sense. I'd be a little bit wow, but yeah, I could see in your position, and that's supposedly the reason why he was there. Like, how can these weapons? Because he's a weapons specialist. How can this apply to me? Like, is this like, does it go boom? Can I shoot it at the enemy? Can I toss it at the enemy? Like, what can I do with it? That makes the most sense for sure.
Yeah, and I'm not gonna sugarcoat things. Like we're not that awesome. SFD, I mean, yeah, we get we get a lot of training and more training than a lot of people get, but like there is way more specialized units than we are. I mean, you go up to JSOC and you talk about TFO, or you talk about some of these other units and some of the training that they get. Like they're not bringing a staff sergeant Green Beret, like a staff sergeant 18 Bravo to test these weapon systems out. They're going to bring, like, if that was even a thing that happened, it would be a CAG operator that had used every weapon known to man and been in conflicts in different continents for his whole life. Like that, like it'd be like picking a guy from a random junior on from an infantry squad and just being like, hey, we're going to teach you how to fly this spaceship, and he's like, I'm not even a pilot, and they're like, okay, well, cool, come look at it.
On the money for sure. Um, if you don't mind, GB, I know Ranger had requested to come up here and talk. Ranger, do you want to just chime in, or if you have any questions or anything?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
just
ahead,
have a
man.
quick question for GB. Hey man, do you think there's a thing to the Jedburgh angle? I've heard a few people mention it, but I don't see how that would have anything to do with it.
For like Livelsberger?
Correct. Yeah.
I don't think so. So actually, the more I looked into it, the more kind of I talked to some other people and got some other records. It looks like he failed ASO training, which would be a precursor to doing anything Jedburgh. So I don't know what level it was, and I think it was a conversation with an ex girlfriend. So take it how you will. But there was a post about it that she had like went to visit him, and he was in. She said, which she probably shouldn't have said that either, because you're actually not supposed to talk about it. Um, but not going into any details. It's just the secret scroll stuff that like SF dudes do. There's some specialized courses that you can go to do that, and then the higher level of that would be going to either RSC or Jedburghs, which is a specialized battalion within each SF group that they created kind of after basically the surge happened. They opened up Fourth Battalion, and they were going to basically the Fourth Battalion was going to be just another battalion of SF regular SF teams and ODAs, and then the surge, the war kind of dwindled down a little bit, and they were like, oh, we have this whole extra battalion. We don't really know what to do with it. So they kind of brought back the whole Jedburgh program, which is it's supposed to be similar to what like the OSS Jedburghs back in World War II were. But I don't know. Again, that's still part of speculation, and I don't think that they've released. I don't think they've released his like full DD 214 or anything that would tell us like what schools he actually attended and did. Um, But if he did not pass that course, then he definitely would not have been a Jedburgh. I mean, so like you go to level 2, and then you go to level 3, and then level 3 after level 3, then you could go higher than that. But you'd have to pass those other ones first. You can't just go be a Jedburgh without passing these other courses.
Ranger, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think about the story that we've been telling here and about this guy, Green Beret, Randy Anderson, that's come forward? What's your initial take on it from hearing the information?
Well, I was McChrystal's medic as part of his PT or his PSD when he was the JSOC commander for Task Force 626. I worked with everybody, man. I was the senior task force medic for JSOC. So we had orange guys, we had ISA, we had NSA, we had CAG, blue, you name it. And I've never seen or heard anything like that. UAPs, UFOs, any type of training for operators to go to study that shit. So that whole entire thing baffles me, kind of like it does GB. So, yeah, I don't have any clue what any of that's about. My whole thing that I'm scratching my head over, and a lot of people are with that whole issue, is uh, just the operational and tactical stuff that was not something that you would do if you were being followed. And there's several other inconsistencies. And now you hear the interview from his widow saying that this none of this was anticipated. He had none of the problems that people were saying. There was no problems in their marriage. The DNA was a match. So it just doesn't make any sense, man. And it sucks that a lot of it's going to get buried and we'll never know.
Yeah, I mean that's. I broke down. I mean, I'm as convinced as you can be with the information we have that either he was an unwilling participant or like some form of patsy in what happened, and that's just because everything was just so off. Like literally, for me, for everything to happen in the way that it happened, it seems like someone read Wikipedia on how to do certain things and then they like enacted it themselves and made a terrible movie about it and like they screwed everything up. That's how I feel when I look at everything that supposedly happened with this. And it just none of it makes sense. So that's why it's really hard, and it's just really hard for me to understand how a Green Beret is, whether or not he had some of the courses that we initially kind of thought he did or not, how you're still so sloppy and so do things so horribly. I mean, like every Green Beret still knows what what like how to do an explosive and how to like you can make a better bomb at $150 with 150 bucks at a going into any hardware store than you could to that he made out of fireworks. Like that's just something like the fireworks thing doesn't make any sense. Everybody knows that. Like
It
what are you
was
going to do with
supposed to not
fireworks?
make sense.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's right, but yeah. So yeah, there's so many inconsistencies and so many things that don't make sense about it that's what bothers me.
It
It's like
was
you
very
almost answered all your own questions. Green Berets don't do any of those things.
it was very
Right,
amateurish
and we
for a professional.
100%, and like they also whether you're like even a normal person, like even my one of my sisters would probably know that you don't look up how to make a bomb on ChatGPT. Like that. Like they're looking at that shit.
Yeah, and they're probably using it. God help us if they weaponize that.
I don't know. Yeah, that's all wild. But I definitely think that this Randy Anderson. I have feelers out. I had to work today, so I didn't have like a whole lot to talk. I talked to a few people this evening about him, and they're kind of digging in to see if they can find anything else about him or what he did or his time. I mean, it's generally a pretty small community, so everybody kind of knows. You're within a few, people of separation from knowing somebody, or at least knowing their reputation. So if I get anything new about him, I'll post that. But
Yo, sir.
from everything that I saw in that video, it's definitely him just looking for some screen time and maybe to make a little money off of just lying about stuff that no one can prove. Like, and that's the other thing about UFO shit. And that's what like all these people are like, oh, they must have saw that. Like, you can't prove it was there or not. So at the end of the day, they're like, well, I did see it. So you can't prove it. It's all bullshit.
Yeah. Yo, dude. For that guy, he was on television too. So there's credibility to what you're saying, man. Like hitting the limelight and shit. But did you see the video of if whether it's him or not in the vehicle, like moving his head and shit? And then the fact that they said he used the Desert Eagle, like that goes over a lot of folks' heads.
Right. Yeah. I mean, where did he shoot himself and when? Because he didn't do it beforehand. Because if you shoot yourself with a Desert Eagle, guess what? People are going to know about it, and there's going to be. I mean, there'd have been splatter. There'd have been something. There'd have been
Yeah.
like, there wouldn't have been a head up like it was. Like, yeah, there's a lot of things that don't make sense with that
And
at
I own a
all.
Tesla, bro, and I can promise you, there's more cameras in that fucking thing than, and there's video. There's not even a question.
Yeah, I guess Tesla right now is saying that because it wasn't using the auto drive feature, that the cameras don't record when you're
Yeah, they
not
got
doing that.
sentry
So
mode though.
how true that is, I don't know.
Yeah, fair enough, man. Who gives a shit? Like whether to get that information out or not, it's like irrelevant. It's just this is like one of them things, man. It's like scripted by like a kindergartner. Doesn't make any fucking sense, and like implement it to do what?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. And then the next thing is like, I can't even think of a reason like why he would be framed for it if he didn't. So either he had a complete mental break and just lost his mind and did
Yep.
all this shit because he literally lost his whole damn mind and just was like crazy out of like, which I
We've
mean,
seen it,
hey,
dude.
war
We've seen
changes
it, bro.
people. Yeah, PTSD. I mean, I know a dude that stepped in front of a train
Yeah,
just
E9 just killed
one night
himself.
just because.
Fucking crazy, man. Dude was one of my heroes, bro.
Yeah, so yeah, it's just. But again, I can't think of anything like even if he was doing involved in the Ukraine Russia conflict, which he probably was in some facet at least. And I don't know. Again, we'd have to see, where he was, like what unit he was with and his position in that unit. If he was in, something in staff level position of 110, he may have been involved in some things that were happening in
Yeah, we'll
Ukraine.
never know though.
But I still
We'll
can't.
never know.
Yeah, but I just still can't think of anything that he would have found in there that would warrant, such a two-bit weird
I know, dude, and
assassination.
like what you were saying earlier, man, about the UFO shit was cracking me up because, like, to your specialty, man, and God bless you, brother. I had a lot of friends down in Herbert, like I was stationed down there for a long time. A lot of friends, a lot of hurt, man. A lot of friends fucked up. You're the man, dude. And I get what you're saying because you're a ground, like you're the elite, bro, on the ground. Why the fuck would you give a fuck, you know? But at the same time, a guy like him, to your credit and to his too, which is why I'm not gonna fucking back this bus up over this motherfucker, is he's also mentally strong, like can do manipulation shit. But I don't nothing leads to the fact that he would do that. So like it takes you down a road of these conspiracies and shit, like the okay, like all that bullshit, like whether or not it's true or not, who knows.
So, Green Beret, you brought up a good point a while ago. That I say this a lot, and I did this with the last whistleblower that came out. That you're within an earshot of probably somebody that knows Randy Anderson. Given that the career field is it tends to be like it's a big field, but it's not, right. It's a small niche of guys. So it would be that was one of the things I was going to ask you is if there was any way that you've reached out to anybody to even verify like Randy Anderson, as far as like we've seen his DD-214, we get it, like all right, he's a guy, he is who he says he is, but at the same time, like surely somebody's
Yeah,
worked
but
with
that
him.
DD-214 kind of cuts that bread trail off. You know what I'm saying? Like it cuts that shit off, man. Because then you get into contract and shit, and then them ties get dried.
Right. So what I was saying is like surely somebody's going to have worked with this guy, and there's going to be information that maybe they don't want to come out, but there's going to be information from somebody
Yeah.
to paint a better picture.
Do you have that DD-214? Can you post it in the chat here for the space?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
It comes down to figuring whatever group he was in, and then what like when he would have went through the course. Then that kind of narrow. Then we can through the grapevine we can talk to dudes that were
Right.
either went through around that time frame or were in that group and may have known him. So that's how we would kind of narrow it down and get information about him that way. Short of going through official channels to try to get his official military
Yo, Green
stuff.
Beret, but too, bro, that like how quick guys can fucking flip, man. Like this E9 I knew, um, there was no fucking signs on the wall that were saying this dude was gonna do what he did to himself. You know what I mean? Like,
Oh yeah, no, I'm not. I'm talking about Matt in this situation. I'm talking more about Randy. So
no,
like,
I know, sir.
yeah, I'm thinking.
And what I'm saying is like after that DD-214, right? Like the trail, regardless, like anything that his wife says, anything that his friends say, like the mental that like let's just fucking entertain the idea that he did, right? And it's him in that vehicle. Well, nothing that we're talking about right now is going to give us the fucking answers. Whether we have his DD2, like the 214 and shit, like it's all going to dry up because there's nothing. It's compartmentalized to a motherfucker.
Yeah, the DD-214 is not for Livelsberger. We're not talking about Livelsberger. We're talking about this Randy Anderson, the other Green Beret that's come out to be so-called whistleblower. That's where these
Sorry, fellas.
DD-214.
I have not heard the story of this Mr. Randy Jackson. Could you fill me
Please
in,
do.
sir?
Here, I'm like, that's who we were talking about. We're talking this space. We kind of went into the Matt thing just because, Livelsberger thing, because of the, um, of him talking about UAP and some of the things that's kind of what is bringing these new folks forward. All right, but hold on, let me just look at his DD-214 real quick.
Well, what, real quick,
He said,
Ranger, did you want a quick breakdown of who we're talking about? Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, I had not heard this most recent claim from this guy. Did he witness some kind of UAP activity or part of this program, or claim to be?
All right, so quick breakdown. Green Beret of either 8 to 10 years. His story has changed depending on like what he was on, but he went to the Crane Naval Warfare facility. Green GB knows a bit more about it, and he went there for training. He said one day after training, him and another Green Beret got asked to go and look at some foreign adversarial. Tech or munitions, whatever, to see, get their idea on it. He wouldn't go into detail about any of that. Like he was basically like, it's classified, I can't talk about it, blah, blah, blah. But then supposedly they both got taken into another more secure facility or area checkpoint and went down underground at that facility and came out. And he said the first thing he noticed, there was a placard that said off-world technology on a door, which is kind of odd. And then the second thing he noticed was there was a small sphere, basketball-sized sphere, or whatever, that was kind of on a podium, but it looked like it was levitating or floating in place, whatever you call it. And then the third thing he saw was something that he described as like a gauntlet that you could put your hand into, and
Glory hole?
yeah, basically said it could have been potentially some kind of weapon. And then when it was discovered, there was an energy burst. It hurt somebody, potentially killed them. From a conversation you heard the cadre having. By the way, the cadre is, I guess, what led them all around.
Well, Green Berets are the top of the top, though. Like that minority is even smaller than the rest of them, right?
there's tiers higher than
Sure,
SF.
sir, but like straight up, man, like you guys are, you eat at the top a little bit, though. You know, a lot, and that community is so goddamn small, man. Like, how the fuck could, like, I was just listening, like the Green Beret training in itself sounds astronomically difficult, like fucking insane.
Yeah, so yeah, Ranger, that's what he experienced. He said that the gauntlet had some kind of hieroglyphics projected into the air, like like some Marvel Iron Man's shit, and it was changing. There were hieroglyphs, and they were rotating or whatever, and that was basically it. And then they were showed out, and then I guess he went to the barracks. Him and that guy talked a little bit, and he said he never saw the guy again and couldn't find him. But then heard that he could potentially be dead or killed in combat. They don't know. So that's kind of the breakdown of what has occurred. But then since that aired yesterday, it's been from his own mouth. He said that he was arrested at the fire department he was working at.
This at?
For
Don't mind me asking. Where was this?
which part?
The part where he saw all of this technology and stuff underground.
Crane, the naval.
It was,
Hey, GB,
yeah,
is that the
it's,
one in Muscatatuck here in Indiana?
yeah, the Naval Surface Warfare
I
Center,
know where
Crane
it's at.
Division.
I'm
Yeah,
about an hour and a half south of it.
Yeah, but
yeah. So that's where he was saying he saw all this stuff at.
and honestly, this shit will get fleshed out real quick.
Well, yeah, that's what we're
Yeah.
trying to do.
Okay, so his DD-214, right, he's missing. There's a whole page of this missing. So we're the continuation sheet. I don't. Did he not post that? Probably not. Um, he did. He did sometime in 19th group. I'm assuming when he got Alpha active duty, but it looks like he was fifth. He had to be fifth group because he has service in Jordan, 2015, 2016,
Nothing in Afghan.
and then no, it's all. So
That's
it had to be
awkward.
fifth group. Yeah, so Inherent Resolve, Sock Forward, Jordan. Yeah, Title 10.
Like, bro, like a guy of your specialty, you got how the fuck are you not Afghan in 2015? Regardless, I mean, I get y'all do your tours and shit, but just Jordan.
10th
You know?
group's AO is in Europe, man. 5th group handles Middle East.
No, I get it, and Jordan falls into that.
No, well, so everyone kind of took, especially, so 14, 15 was still the time where Afghanistan was kind of still going. Now, third group up until about 15 when we switched back to Africa was heavy
Dude,
in
were you
Afghanistan.
down in Kenya in 20? Nah, I shouldn't say. But yeah, back and forth from Kandahar to Bagram for me, man. Them 2 years.
I was in Afghanistan, but yeah, I don't want to go into a bunch of
Fuck
detail
no,
about all
Yeah,
that.
dude.
But
keep,
Fuck
it,
no.
hold
I'm
on,
just
hold
saying
on,
it's awkward
Doctor.
that guy wasn't in that country on his DD2 214. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, I mean that's what if we're missing the whole continuation page, which would have. Let's see, because that looks the trip it has on there was the 15 trip. So if he did any time after that, then we're missing that information on there. But it does actually no, it looks like that 2015 on his record of service. There was 9 months, 2015 and 2016, and then he separated in 3 months into 2016. That's what it looks like. I don't know. I'm not the best at
No,
reading
but
DD
dude, like the
214s,
amount of
man.
time
I'm
it
not right
takes y'all to
there.
get to where you're at, sir, it almost like the math doesn't add up. Like
His purse
yeah.
tempo would give you a better idea of where he's been. The DD14 is kind of hard to figure out when it comes to that. The purse tempo would better.
So here's the thing that's thrown me off too. So in the episode, apparently he had shown Jesse Michaels, like they had talked about his deployments, but he asked that none of that deployment information be public.
Smart.
But why would he do that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand that. That's not really weird to me to not want to talk about all the. I mean, I don't necessarily mind talking about like where I've been. I probably wouldn't like go into specifics of any
Nope.
of it. But yeah, I mean, him not wanting to air that but him not wanting to air that, but then going and airing the super 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 top secret fucking tech that no one else could ever have seen or should like that how does that make sense,
It
bro? Him
doesn't,
like
dude.
none of this makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why again, I bring people like you into it because then you can analyze what this guy's disclosed at the very little. Like I definitely understand, the deployment aspect. Yep, keep it under wraps. With what you guys do, that's fine, right? The last thing you guys need is more criticism for what's
Yeah,
going
not
on.
criticism, sir. It's also like there's like we're just doing simple math, like how long a school takes, how long a deployment takes. Each branch does different lengths of deployments. In 2015, it was hot in Afghan more than Jordan. You know what I'm saying? So like there's a lot of nuance to what we're talking about without saying details, and we don't really need to say details, but like it's also documented, you know.
It would be simple to verify all of this stuff that this dude's
100%.
all this dude's talking about. All you
Yeah,
got to do is just get somebody in that was there at the same time.
yeah, I mean, I'll post something if I find out anything more about him from the grapevine. He's probably honestly taken more time out of our lives than we ever
Yeah,
should be
and that's
giving
my
him.
point, man.
Hey Jacob, you asked about DEWs. I don't know what that is. Does anybody else know what that
Direct
is?
energy weapons.
Yeah, man.
Get ready for this
I'm
quantum
like,
shit.
yeah, like ODAs, man. Like that's not something that we would ever deal. We,
Basically,
we
that's what an LRAS is.
yeah, but yeah. I mean, okay, but again, like if you talk to your average Green Beret, like we get proficient in our weapon systems that we use on a daily basis, and you'll have your. This is my experience with SF dudes. There's regardless of whether they're a Bravo or Delta or whatever they are on a team, there's always like a dude that just loves guns and everything about guns and all the new guns and all the new gear, and he's like all about it. And he goes all in. And most of us were just
Yeah.
like I'm gonna learn these
Choppy.
guns that I shoot all the time, and then I'm gonna be really good at those. And then like when I get my personal weapons, like they're gonna be kind of similar to what I already am proficient with, because why am I going to reinvent the wheel? That's another thing about the Matt Livelsberger thing. Like, no Green Berets buying a damn Desert Eagle 50, dude. This ain't a Guy Ritchie movie.
And bro, most don't know you guys for for that very reason, that you're very good at just doing what you do well. And when I am describing UGB, I tell people it's like the original Roadhouse. I've hung out with you motherfuckers. You guys are the best, dude. It's literally like walking around with fucking superheroes, man. So I love y'all.
Have you ever heard any
Uh,
other good
I don't know.
explanation for the buckshot, the 75 pounds of that? Why it wasn't used, or
No, I don't. I mean, a lot of it honestly seemed like in the some of the stuff that they found from his phone, it seemed like he just wanted to go out and go to the Grand Canyon and set off his stuff and die. That's what it sounded like from those initial or the things from his phone. Like the Trump Tower thing, like where did that even come into play?
Yeah.
That was never anything he even mentioned in any of his
And was
correspondence.
there a Desert Eagle registered under his name at all in his inventory?
Yeah, he bought apparently. So I actually we have I know a few guys and they know some gun store owners in Colorado that they were thinking might have been on his route, and so they're trying to figure out if they could get the information if he actually did buy those. He did. I mean, obviously in his correspondence, he said that he ordered them on the 27th, I believe, and he picked them up on the 30th. I think is what it
But
was.
GB, dude, that's such a big caliber. Like, you don't need that to do what you need to do.
No, it's 7. And again, we don't carry
Desert
useless
Eagles.
pistols like that have 7 rounds. Like there's a reason why we carry Glock 17s or
Yeah,
19s,
that's what I'm getting
because
at.
we want the extra shots. And then every Green Beret you talk to, they're going to tell you, anybody that's actually done any shooting, actually not just Green Berets, but anyone is going to tell you that, like, you don't need a higher
That's what I'm
caliber.
getting at.
Shot placement is what matters. So getting proficient in the weapon system you have and having the most amount of shots so that you can get correct shot placement, that's what matters.
and why
And
use the Eagle
yeah.
if you and have the AR too? You don't need both.
Well, an AR with no sights or no optics or anything. Yeah, what are you gonna do with that?
Exactly. So
Gut
playing
punch somebody?
devil's advocate, it's like, all right, did they find a burned up fucking Desert Eagle? Did they find a round? And even if they had done that and it's not him, or what, like, that's another, like, is he saying something? There's no Green Berets
They
getting
did.
a
They
goddamn
found.
Desert Eagle to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense, but they found apparently they found three spent shell casings that did have primer strikes from the Desert
Yeah,
Eagle.
placed by like a security officer at Dunkin' Donuts. Like, who the
Right.
fuck? What the fuck
Right.
are they talking about?
I don't know, man. It's all a mystery. Hey, Chris, you got anything else you want to touch on?
I was going to bring a couple more people out, so I'm gonna cycle people out, and there's a couple more want to ask some questions. Well, one now.
There's an intel guy in here.
Who is that?
Alibaba.
Yeah, that's who's going to come up. Well, where'd he go? Well, he was in here, so I don't know where he went. I was literally just going to bring him up.
Who's your intel guy, dude? That was bullshit.
Who are you talking about?
You, man. I'm just kidding. Like, you have an intel guy.
Oh, well, I am an intel guy, but
That's awesome, dude.
So I'm gonna bring. I don't know who this is. I'm bringing him up real quick, and then I'm gonna bring up. Oh, there he is. Hold on. A body. If you want to go ahead, I know you've been waiting for a while.
Hey, I just saw your message. I guess you don't want to talk about Matt.
Yeah, I kind of just don't. I mean, people can speculate all day, but this is more so about the Green Beret UFO whistleblower. It came out yesterday. This is what this space is about.
Yeah. Well, I have two things about this. Did we have did we get any confirmation on when the last time he was in Germany?
Yeah, he flew in on the 21st and was supposed to fly out on the 4th.
That's when the last time he was in Germany.
Yes.
Yeah, as far as I'm tracking he flew from Germany on the 21st into the United States.
Oh shoot. Okay, that changes everything because yeah.
Was he supposed to break something?
What's that?
I'm sorry, you're breaking up.
What did you say?
Oh, nothing.
Oh, yeah, that changes everything. Yeah. Okay, there's a bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, I think I have a theory in my head. I don't want to talk about it in public spaces.
Why not?
And, because it's highly classified.
If it was that classified, you wouldn't say it.
No, because everybody knows we have a footprint in Germany and other places. So that's the reason I asked. Yeah, shoot. Okay. And as
Who's
far as
doing
about
it?
as far as the UFO stuff, I mean, we already have non-classified information, CUI, from DARPA and their project in northern New Jersey. They they've been basically co-developing a lot of high technology drones to basically scan from like aerial scanning for chemical weapons and dust and some crazy stuff.
What
And
about cancer? Can they scan for cancer?
I have not read anything about that, to be honest with you. Yeah, but as far as like from the Ukraine-Russia war, we learned a lot about drone technology and how it's been used and implemented in the
Using the word war is a little bit much.
What's that?
So he kept cutting people off. He's gone. I'm not going to do that. So finish what you're saying real quick, and I'm going to bring some more people up here.
Okay. So yeah, from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and it's a heavily drone operated battlefield, and we have learned a lot from that. So, and our technology is adjusting based on the electronic warfare is using both sides and how basically they're implementing those drones into the battlefield from surveillance into actually attack. So we do have a very advanced drone program, and a lot of it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's discounting that we have advanced drones, man, or any of that information. What we're discounting is that a 18 Bravo that was highest level of staff sergeant with which would have been a secret clearance would have had any access to any of that information whatsoever. As far as this Randy Anderson goes, Matt, again, I don't know what he was involved with, but it's still, even at his level, I still don't think he would have been involved with anything at that. But
GB, when did you get out? Because there's some changes happened in the past about 10 years.
23.
You got out in 23 because a lot of Green Berets and special operations, they actually start getting TSSCI for multiple different reasons.
Yeah, but this had happened with him, I think, in, what was it, 2014? I can't remember. It was a while back.
Yeah, the Randy Anderson was back. I think it said it was like 2014. He showed a picture of him. He was still in what's it called? ACUs.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, so it's been a minute, so that wouldn't have applied to him if that's what you're insinuating. But real quick, I know I don't want to stay on too much longer and get off task. A couple more people, GB, and then I guess we'll go ahead and we'll cut it off if you're cool with that.
Yeah, man.
All right. I think it's called Zinner. If I butcher it, sorry. Zinerist. Go ahead.
It's all good. I just wanted to clarify about the Afghan stuff on this DD-214 or the lack thereof it. I was at 5th Group. I got there in 2013, and my team got back from Afghanistan like a week after I got there, and that was pretty much the last tour that 5th Group did to Afghanistan. We had completely switched to just the Middle East. So if he were in 5th Group, it looked like he was in 19th Group and got attached to 5th Group to go to Jordan. That totally makes sense because by 2015, a lot of us were starting to go into Syria and Turkey, and we needed more support in the back. And we weren't going to give 19th group guys slots into Syria when there's only so few of us already in there. So for him to go to Jordan made sense because we had sock forward in Jordan was probably right on the other side of the border with that 10th, and they probably needed a lot of backside support. So his deployment to Jordan totally makes sense, and his lack of going to Jordan totally makes sense if 19th group was supporting 5th group at the time, because we had pretty much stopped all tours to Afghanistan by 2014.
So,
Yeah, that
I
tracks.
just want to ask. So, do guard groups generally support other groups? Or how does that work?
So what they'll do is if teams are light on dudes, so your team's supposed to have 12 guys, but you only have, maybe 6 or 7 at times, we might request from the National Guard guys for additional support. Now, at the time, my team was full when we were in Syria, so we weren't asking for that, but the B team or the SOC might have been short with 18 series dudes who they want in the back because they know what other 18 series guys need when they're forward. So they'll request from the guard units, hey, we need, you guys want to do, 7 months in Jordan, or do you want to do 8 months in Turkey helping us out because we need more backside support for the guys who are forward.
Nice, thank you. Yeah, I'm just trying to paint a better picture. Like, obviously,
Yeah,
I don't want to. I'm not disparaging this guy in his service. He did what he did. It's there. I'm just more concerned about the claims he's made outside of it.
Yeah, his claims don't make sense, but his GD214 tour makes sense, which doesn't really mean anything regarding what he said about Crane.
Right, and so that's a common thing in this community, and I have been trying to sound the alarm on this. Is what's happening in the UFO community is there are guys with backgrounds, certain backgrounds, whether it be military, any kind of DoD, or even intelligence, especially intelligence. All these guys are coming out as so-called whistleblowers, and what's happening is they're making claims, right? But they're not being deemed credible because they have evidence to support claims. They're being deemed credible because of their resumes and their background. And it seems like it's just specifically targeted towards military DoD personnel and IC. That's a red flag that's been popping up, and unfortunately there's something that there's a way this stuff is tying in, and I've had people message me, and I'm definitely not going to mention names on this one, but there are some of these so-called UFO celebrities that have been former military intelligence, or I don't think any of them have been special forces, but they are trying to take military veterans and groom them into, if they have like any kind of experience, like groom them into, and those are the words they're using, not something that I've put out there, but grooming them into becoming these witnesses, these whistleblowers, and moving them forward because because to them, those guys with that background are seen more credible than the people that, normal civilians that have experiences, and they're trying to gain a foothold in Congress and get attention to push this stuff forward. And that's what's been going on. I've been trying to put that out there as much as I can because I've seen that trend develop since I've been here. And to be honest, as a veteran and a guy that works still in intel, like, it's I hate it because I had a conversation with a guy at work today, who was involved with SF, and then he retired. So he's there's an underlying thing, especially with Livelsberger and others that are popping up, and it seems like for guys like you fellas that have done the service, security, or I'm sorry, special forces, JSOC, all the ranks of those guys, when you're in, what you've gone through and the amount of training, the amount of experience, and then there's no support for to help you guys with vices, right? Like, with this Anderson guy, He had a drug addiction with, Livelsberger. Obviously had some mental issues going on. He was I had read that he was seeking mental health advice and stuff. Like, there's a trend, and it's an alarming thing where you guys aren't getting the support to help with what you've experienced, and now you're seeing some people and their rationality and how they think and like how they're acting out now. We kind of talked about that today, and it's actually quite alarming. When I was at Travis Air Force Base, mind you, I'm an Air Force veteran. I didn't do anything, um, but when I was at Travis Air Force Base, there was a guy that came back from a deployment, and he lived on base. It was right across the street from me in the dorms. Came back, and his mother-in-law and his mother-in-law and his wife lived with him, obviously, and he came back, killed both of them, and killed himself. Like, there is a real issue underlying all of this, but I think that it's being put forward and brought attention to, but people aren't paying attention to the fact that there's a real issue there.
Yeah, there's also a lot more today, a lot more help and a lot more I guess services that and then Green Berets know about all this stuff now. Especially, there's been a big push, not only by just your units, but by like big like SF Command and higher, to make sure that like everybody kind of knows, like, hey, if you're having issues, if you're having weird, if you're having mental issues or whatever, like, there you can go to these anonymous things, you can get the help you need, and it's not going to affect. Because so the big problem was, especially during the surge, and then when there was a lot of war going on, was dudes, they if they thought if they came forward and said that they had issues or anything like that, or anything at all, even marriage issues, like whatever it was, that they would get dropped from a team, they would lose their clearance, they would get, and to a lot of these guys, all this is all they knew, this is all they know, this is all they care about. I mean, I know plenty of them, and that, especially the career guys that are in for the long haul, that are in depth. Those dudes, like, that's all they think about when they're walking through the grocery store getting their groceries. They're thinking about the training they're going to do for the next trip that they're going on. So on and so forth. So when they have these issues, they think, if I go forward with them or I say anything, then there's a chance that I'll lose this, and this is what's the most important thing to me. But nowadays, there is a lot more options and a lot more help out there. So I'm hoping that there's really good organizations out there. The SF Charitable Trust is one of them, and they do amazing things. They have unanimous or anonymous programs that you can do if you need help. They'll pay for them. They'll send you to them, like all the kind of stuff. And then just the big army still has, the big army has their system. I can't remember exactly what it's called, but you can go through that, and it won't actually affect your clearance or anything like that. It's kind of, they keep it separate. And Army One Source, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but there's a lot of stuff that you can do to get some help, and it is pushed a lot. And so I'm hoping that does get better. But it does, yes, I agree with what you're saying, that it does seem like there's this big narrative being pushed about all this mental health issues. And then another thing, like, if Matt had been seeking help for that kind of stuff, like, that wouldn't be public record. That wouldn't be something that anyone really would know unless he's specifically himself talked about it.
Yeah,
So I
it's
don't know
true.
how much, and his wife said that he wasn't. So I mean, yes, she could just be a grieving widow who's trying to just protect his image, which, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'll take all angles from it, but I just don't see that coming out in the news the day. I mean, that shit was being reported almost immediately that he was having mental health issues. And like, how would they know that? One, you got HIPAA, and two, uh, like, who's saying that? Because if he would have been seeking help from anybody, that's not something that, I mean, definitely in his command would not have said anything about that publicly. That, like, you're going into some really murky waters if that was to happen. So
Yeah, that you're 100% right. It doesn't make any sense that they were saying that, because they shouldn't know. Command would know, but they wouldn't release that. Um, I think what it might maybe is they might have actually had, these people may have had mental breakdowns, and it's not that you're seeing more people from this community have them. I think I mean, we've had issues with guys on deployment have mental breakdowns, and they got the support, the situation was fixed, and the public would never know about it because the command did the proper thing. I think with as many Green Berets as there are, and as many of them have, been going for 10, 15, 20 years, the fact that we actually have so few is more surprising than the one or two occasions where it's been public. I think that you're only seeing the large catastrophic failures of a command that are going public. The ones where problems do arise, the teams and the commands are really good at actually addressing the issue and making sure that guy gets help. And it doesn't make the news because they did the right thing.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I know lots of dudes that have gotten help for whatever reason, whether it be marital or whether it be just they were in the wrong headspace or whatever it ended up being. And yeah, you're right. Like commands that's they literally have an open door policy to kind of combat that, to because the last thing they do want you to do is to take your own life or to hurt somebody else. They want you to get the help you need and to move on and then hopefully become operational again, because that's the ultimate goal. I mean, an SF soldier, just your average SF I'm losing my tongue here. The average SF soldier costs $1 million to make, right? So like, and you talk about deltas, you're talking way more than
2.7
that. So
million.
there you go. 2.7 million, man. So like, it's in the best interest to keep these guys as sane and operational as possible. So when there are again, it does happen, right? I mean, we all know, anybody that's in the community knows somebody that has taken their own life, and it's terrible and tragic. And I wish there was a way we could like ensure that it doesn't happen. But you know, when you go to war, things happen, and you see things, and then some people handle it differently, and then that's just the way of life. So, but yeah, I think all good points made.
So real quick before I get to Shane, but I want GB, obviously your opinion, Ranger and Zonarist. I so going back to this Randy Anderson, with what obviously the drug addiction, like he admitted that. Obviously he's had probably maybe some coping issues as well, right? Like that's I'm assuming maybe that's where it came from. I don't know. He might have pain issues. I don't know. But what do you think? What is your take on why, if you don't, if we don't believe what he's saying is to be true, why is he doing it? I mean, it's easy to say maybe for fame and money, but if you watch that interview, one thing I did notice about him, one, he didn't show his eyes. That hat, that brim was pulled down pretty low, where it was hard to see his eyes. And two, he was very nervous. Like when it showed side views of him, he's picking at his hands, rubbing his hands, like, and he slouched forward, right? It's like he's kind of like balled himself up while he was talking. It wasn't only until later in the interview that he started like kind of flailing his hands a little bit, getting a little more comfortable. So what do you think, as far as what we just discussed, would be the reason why Randy Anderson has made these claims that most likely are not true?
Man, I mean, again, SF is just like anything else. There's going to be dudes that slip through the cracks and make it, and probably shouldn't have, or don't have the integrity or moral fortitude that you would hope that someone in that position would have. So there is just obviously he could have just there. How much? I mean, how many views did that video get, and how much money did Jesse Michaels make, and what did he promise? You know this Randy dude. Like, we don't know that, right? And then some dudes don't. Maybe he doesn't care about money. Maybe he had his drug issues, and this is just a redemption to hopefully get his name out there. It doesn't make sense to me because we're obviously all picking it apart, and it's gonna probably end up blowing up in his face, especially as it gets around more to the community. Because I mean, I talked to a buddy of mine today about it, and he was like, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, you need to watch this video and like tell me what you think." But like I just kind of recapped it real quick for him. He's a career guy, retired sergeant major, and he's like, no, just from what you're telling me, I like none of that would make sense at all. I mean, like he knows plenty of people that have been to that school, the Crane school that he was talking about. So, um, That's my 2 cents on it. I don't know. It could be for money. It could be for to get his face out there a little bit, and it could just be because he's a liar and he made it through and he's using it to get whatever he can get out of it. I don't know.
He sounds like a strap hanger to me.
Can you let people know what that means?
It's just somebody that is adjacent to SOF or SF, that just want to be part of the limelight for a brief period of time, get their 15 minutes of fame. I mean, like you said, we're sitting here talking about this guy. He's got some airtime. If he gets something positive out of it, there'll be some other crazies out there that'll latch onto it and suck on that tit for a while.
Yeah, I mean, so one thing he's talking about, like SF, so you could be a part of Third Special Forces Group, and you could be a support soldier, right? So you could be an S1, or you could be a truck driver, or you could be a mechanic, or you could be like whatever. You're not actually an SF 18 series, but you're attached to Third Group, and those dudes will be downtown in Fayetteville, telling whatever chick that they're talking to that they're in Third Group, So that's kind of what he's talking about. He could be something like that.
Yeah, because like I supplemented. I was direct support for Seventh Group. I was down at Sixth RTB at Rudder. When they moved down to Crestview, they lost their dive medic. I think he got kicked out for something, an alcohol incident or drugs or something. And I was the only other DMT available in the area, so I had to go and supplement their dive team as the dive medic. But yeah, and another thing I wanted to mention, as far as this UAP stuff, if there was any type of SAP program, UFO UAP program, more than likely, the Air Force would be involved in that. You see a lot of these Air Force pilots and Navy pilots coming back with these, and then they're coming out, and you see all these videos. But more than likely, something to do with Aero or UAPs, that would at the top levels would be an Air Force thing, in my opinion.
I don't disagree with that, but over the course of the history of this UFO topic, especially here over the past decade, the Navy has been really uh, in, invested in this. There's been guys from Navy intelligence that are very invested in this UFO ordeal. The former head of UAPTF, which is the office that was before Arrow, Jay Stratton, he's been with Navy for I don't know how many years. I think in the civilian capacity. I don't know if he actually served. I haven't looked that deep into it. But the Navy's heavily involved in the UAP topic for sure. But I agree. Like as far as the Army has gone, like I have never really heard anybody invested in it until recently, and I don't want to talk about it as much, but Livelsberger with his at the end of that email where he did put TSSCI and then UAP and USAPs. So and that opened the door, right? And then next thing you know, you've got this guy Randy Anderson coming out. So yeah, it's just. But I agree with you as far as like Air Force, hell, maybe even Space Force, but they're still trying to get their shit up and going.
Yeah, and AT Bravo would not be, or Zulu would not be involved in this.
No, I mean, there's no IMTO position for that and for any SF. So like, yeah, like I said, I had to look up what UAP was whenever this all started because I had never even heard it before because like that's just not a realm that we even operate in or think about. So
Awesome. Designers, you have any thoughts? And I'm going to Shane pop up here, ask a question or whatever.
Yeah, I think the only thing that Green Berets would get involved with aircraft is you're a JTAC and you're nerding out on what an F-15 can do and what bombs they can carry. We don't care about UAPs. That is so far out there and removed from what we're actually doing that none of us are looking at that or doing any programs with that.
So a little bit background about me. I'm like the skeptic in this little UFO community. And so just for the record, I didn't even know GB until the Sean Ryan after show that or after space he did. And I just went up there and asked questions. I tagged him in the post about Randy Anderson. That's kind of how we got to talking. But you other fellas, this is the first time I've ever met you. So I just want to be clear. This is not like in a planned smear campaign. It's getting the guys that have been in this type of situation and have done these jobs in here to discuss what those duties look like, how they operate, and get a good baseline of, hey, is this guy full of it or not? And then, like I've stated, just like in the intel community, and like with this guy Jason Sands, the intergalactic alien assassin in the United States Air Force, he, the community is big but small at the same time, and you're within an earshot of people that have worked with those individuals and that can speak about how were they at work, how, what did their duties involve, like were they ever exposed to the same thing, things of that nature. And that's why, like, I hold these spaces, and I'm really glad, GB, you agreed to do it, because this is hopefully going to, I know there's some people in here that have got podcasts that have been looking forward to this space, because it gives them a better idea. The average civilian that hasn't done this thing, it gives them an idea. Okay, well, here are the guys that have done the same job, and they're saying this guy's full of crap, right? So that's important, and I'm really glad you guys came in. I appreciate that. Shane, go ahead.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, Chris, best space you've ever done. I want to say the same thing. Thanks, Green Beret Naptime Rangers, on ours, everybody else who joined, to give an idea of what it's actually like in the military, especially near subsections of it. Ufology runs right with this kind of thing, where you have UFO heroes like Jesse Michaels or Luis Elizondo, or God forbid, Dr. Stephen Greer or Linda Moulton Howe, and they will interview military guys, and they'll say that they've gone deep into into cold jungles and fought crab monsters. Or Linda Moulton Howe will say that Spartan 1 and Spartan 2 were Navy SEALs in the Antarctic, but the two guys give Army Ranger ranks and no one cares about it. So it's really nice to hear from you guys. I know this kind of like isn't fun to talk about all the time, but I hope you guys stick around and can be a good resource to bring like common sense to here and show that these UFO heroes aren't vetting anyone at all. They're literally just running with these stories for, like Green Beret said, to make money off of Jesse Michaels is going to make probably a smooth 30, 40 grand off of that, looking at his analytics right now. He's tracking that at least, and he's not going to care. These people, they don't care. They just move on to the next thing. It takes people like Chris and like me and Vetted and other people that to try to like just show people what's going on. These people, they don't care about. It really made me sick to hear Chris talk about like people getting groomed to be UFO whistleblowers. It's disgusting. And I just really thank you guys for your time. And that's really all I got to say. Thank you.
Well, do you know what group he was in?
From it looks like 19th group. It looks like it is which is National Guard. So but again, we're not seeing the whole DD-214 here. So
Yeah. If I knew what
hard to
group
say.
he was in, I could probably make a couple phone calls and find out real quick.
That'd be great.
Yeah, I think it looks like he is 19th, and then he was attached to 5th group for that Jordan deployment. And honestly, I'm nothing against National Guard dudes, right? But there's kind of a known thing in the community, like if you were a straight national, if you went, if you were active duty and then you went National Guard, that's one thing. But if you came in, went to the Q course, and then you went back to straight National Guard the whole time, it's just far less operational, I would say, than being an active duty guy.
That's
Yeah, I'm out now, so I still have a SF tab.
So to answer that real quick, like my grandfather, Green Beret, old school Green Beret out of Germany, he was out there, and I've seen the yearbooks with like he literally. I remember this as a kid, yearbooks with people's names and faces blacked out. Like I to this day still remember that, and his picture being in there. I don't know if that's something. I don't think they still do that type of stuff, but he did that, and he's always been very proud about being a Green Beret. So I've always had tremendous respect for those guys. So my interpretation is that at least the old school guys were once a beret, always a beret type thing. Vetted, go ahead.
Hey, Chris, thank you so much, man. Great space. Really, really enjoyed this. It's kind of enlightening, to be honest with you. I have two quick questions. One, I would imagine that people in the military want to protect each other at all costs, especially your team members. So, what do you think about like if let's imagine that his story is real, Randy's, I'm talking about. Wouldn't it put other military service members in danger for him to come out with this information, or potentially?
Sorry, say that one more time. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm saying if let's assume Randy's story is true, wouldn't him coming out and talking about, going down in this secret base and seeing this alien tech, like, is there any possibility that that would put other military members, like, at peril or hurt them in some way? Because wouldn't it be, you guys want to protect each other at all costs. So is there any chance that that would, like, hurt y'all in some way? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I mean, just from having a clearance standpoint, like you just don't talk about like if you're doing stuff that's classified with your team, like you're not talking about that with anyone outside of your team for that very reason that you just stated, and that would I assume that's anybody that has a clearance, because you just don't mess around with your clearance, because if you lose your clearance, then now you can't even do the job that you're in anymore. So you just wouldn't play with that at all. And then two, he's very, his story is about, there's one other guy with him that he just randomly says was a Green Beret. You never talk to him again, and then you get no, and then maybe he, like we said, maybe he's died in deployment at some point. So the one person that could verify his story is no longer able to verify his story. So I think we're just getting into more territory that um, he's obviously kind of made this stuff up. Whatever. He even talks about DMT, right? Like,
Yeah.
obviously he's been doing enough things that maybe his mind is just a little bit broken, and or he's just straight up lying because he wants to get money. But yes, to answer your question, we would not talk about something that could potentially put a teammate or somebody in peril. That would be absolutely
Good.
not okay, and that would get you blackballed from the community
I
for
have a good
sure.
Yeah.
example, GB. Okay, so as an 18 Delta, when you go through SOCM, part of the training is we do live tissue training. Okay, this is well known. I mean, it's maybe somebody's might be ticked off that I'm mentioning it, but one of the things is you never talk about that live tissue training while you're doing it or to anybody outside of what's going on, because it can cause a lot of problems. PETA comes and finds out, and it can interrupt the training. So it's not necessarily that he's putting anyone in jeopardy per se, but you're letting people being read in on stuff that we don't want other people to know that's going on, because it can cause problems within the community. So that's a big no-no, to let everybody know that we've been doing live tissue training and working on goats and pigs and things like that. So that's just an example.
All right. Yeah. Well
Yeah.
said. I have one last question. If Randy were here right now in this space, what would y'all ask him?
I'd have a real hard time being cordial, honestly. I would pick apart his story until he didn't have an answer, and then we would all just go to bed knowing that this dude just lied. There's just no, I just don't see a way that he could explain this to an actual Green Beret or to anybody else that actually kind of knows about anything that would make sense. That podcast was for your civilians eating cheese puffs, that are waiting for their hot pockets to get done, that are like, oh, the world's going to end soon because UFOs are coming and this
Does
Green
he know the
Beret
creed?
knows. Ah, dude. I mean, at this point, who knows how much DMT is in? I don't know,
I
man.
was going to ask him where he got the DMT.
Yeah, like, oh, I mean, whatever. He was, where'd he get the heroin?
Yeah.
I don't know. I know GBs that'll smoke weed here and there and do they'll obviously drink alcohol, but the GBs doing hard drugs, very few, very
That's
few.
kind of hard to do when you're operational. You have to
Oh,
function.
100%, 100%. And even the guys I know that are out and just have a cake job and get their VA and their retirement, they're still not doing
Yeah,
hard drugs because
it's
it's
not worth.
just like
It's
they're
not
just
worth
not
it.
doing it.
I had to answer for whoever was asking about if you are still a Green Beret when you get out. So I got out in 2017, and I went into the National Guard for a year, still as a Green Beret, to finish my 8-year service contract. I signed up for 5, extended for another year to help my team out with a deployment. So I had 6 and like some change, and then I did another year and 3 months to get the entire 8 of my service contract fulfilled. So I couldn't be called up again. Oddly enough,
That's smart.
oddly enough, while I was at 19th Group, I got a letter from, I think it was SWIC or just the regiment asking if I wanted to come back and re-enlist as a Green Beret, because at that time, so many guys were getting out and leaving that their numbers were really bad. So they were actually asking guys who had been civilians for over a year at that point to come back and re-enlist and come back as a full Green Beret. It was one of the weirdest things I've ever received. And my company commander at the time at 19th Group was pissed because, say if I had done that, he would have lost out on a guy who would come to the unit and was now just going to go and turn active, and there was nothing he could do about it. So he would now be a man short for any operational goals that they wanted to have when the regular army was trying to poach guys from his unit. So
Yeah, and to expand on that a little bit too, you can get your tab pulled after you're out. Say you did something really bad and you pissed off somebody, enough that was still active, or you pissed them off. They could retroactively go and pull your tab and change your DD-214 where you're no longer an 18 series. So that does happen even though you're not active anymore. So
Same thing with the short tab.
yep, that makes sense.
Awesome. All right. That's going to be it for tonight. GB, special thank you for doing this, man. It's recorded, so by any means, if somebody wants to take this, put it out there. If there's something that was informational, that you know that can be put out there to maybe get some other Green Beret eyes on it, or anybody that worked with him, that would be great. I know Vetted was in here. He asked if he could use it. So yeah, it was going to be recorded all the way, anyways. I always record my spaces. But yeah, shout out GB. Thank you so much, man. And Enzinerist and Ranger, thank you for hopping up in here and adding more context. It meant the world. You guys are great. And it's just a special thank you for what you guys did in your service, man. They're just from a guy that, like I said, my best friend is, he's JSOC, and I can tell you, like, you guys are it's a it's tip of the spear type of stuff, and I know you don't like to boast about it, and that's how you know that you are the guys that you are. So special thank you for that, and we'll go ahead and shut this down if any of y'all have any final thoughts.
No, man, thanks for having us. It was fun, man. Hope we got a little bit of knowledge out there to everybody, and just be careful who you listen to, and be careful what you take as gospel, because it can be picked apart pretty easy by dudes that have been around to know some things.
Suis Ponte, the oppressor La Bayer, and Sin Paris.
Absolutely. You'll have a good one.
Thank you, guys. All right, everybody, we're shutting it down. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll pop in spaces maybe a little bit later tonight, and if anybody has any questions, I'll answer them. All right, thank y'all so much, and until next time, have a good one.